Let's dive right into this because the internet is absolutely on fire right now and we need to talk about it immediately. Over the past few days, there's been this heavily circulated, incredibly hyperpixelated image set that has just been completely dominating social media. What we're supposedly looking at here is a leaked, absolutely massive key scene from the upcoming Avengers Doomsday. And when I say key scene, I mean an absolute cinematic fever dream. We are talking about the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four all teaming up on screen to fight Dr. Doom and an entire army of Sentinels. I mean, think about that for a second. For literally decades, corporate rights issues between Fox and Disney made a crossover of this magnitude legally impossible. There was no way it was ever going to happen. So seeing these legendary factions finally share a battlefield, it just feels surreal. Now, you know me, normally I take these kinds of leaks with a massive grain of salt, but the sheer scale of what this represents has completely divided the fan base. So let me put on my cinematic investigator hat for just a second. We have to ask, is this real, or is this just an incredibly elaborate AI fake that has gone way, way too far? I've spent hours breaking down the pixels, looking at the lighting models, and really analyzing how these visual effects pipelines work, and the truth is, the community is entirely split right down the middle. Half of the trusted industry insiders out there swear up and down that this is absolutely an AI fabrication, just something designed to play on our deepest, wildest fan desires. But the other half? They are quietly insisting that it's genuine Previs artwork. If you're not familiar, Previs is the rough, early digital animation that studios use to map out those insanely complex CGI action sequences way before filming even begins. And honestly, these early renders are absolutely crucial for blocking out massive set pieces that involve dozens of characters. But here is the massive red flag that actually makes me lean towards this having some real legitimacy. Ready? Marvel hasn't scrubbed it from social media. Usually when something this monumental leaks, the copyright strikes are flying within minutes. The fact that you can still easily find this Doom and Sentinel fight online is baffling. But while we wait for official trailer footage to prove this true or false, let's pivot to what we actually know for sure. Section 1. Hard evidence. The return of a legend. Okay, moving smoothly out of the Wild West of internet rumors and stepping into cold, hard, confirmed territory, let's examine an incredibly revealing moment. Because look, while blurry Sentinel images are super fun to theorize about, the actual confirmed details regarding who survives Doomsday and makes it into Secret Wars, that is infinitely more fascinating. We're moving into the concrete architectural plans for the entire next phase of this cinematic universe. So recently, Chris Evans was asked point blank in an interview if he could share any details about Avengers Doomsday. And, naturally, after doing that classic Hollywood dance of hemming and hawing to avoid breaking any non-disclosure agreements, he finally dropped this massive bombshell. He said, and I quote, "What I can tell you is that I'm starting on the next one in a couple of months." Now, on a surface level, this is absolute confirmation that Steve Rogers is officially locked in for Avengers Secret Wars. But if we break down the studio's broader strategy, the implications of this one quote are just staggering. So the absolutely crucial point we have to absorb right now is this: Steve Rogers survives Avengers Doomsday. I really want to take my time and analyze the logic here because it literally dictates the entire future of the franchise. Think about the massive narrative weight of bringing an original, foundational character like Steve Rogers back into the fold. The cinematic universe has, let's be honest, struggled recently, and we really have to admit that it lost its emotional anchor without Steve Rogers and Tony Stark around. The whole convoluted Kang storyline was falling apart, and the overarching plot just felt like a wandering mess without a clear leader to guide us. So if you are bringing Chris Evans back to ground the narrative in Doomsday, there is absolutely no logical way you just kill him off again right before Secret Wars. No way. Omitting him from the grand finale would be repeating the exact same structural mistakes that led to the recent lack of focus in the first place. Steve Rogers is here to stay, at least through the end of this multiversal saga. Section 2. The macro story. A soft reboot. Let me explain what this actually means when we zoom out and look at the bigger picture. We need to shift our focus from the survival of just one single character to the entire architectural master plan for the next decade of films. Kevin Feige explicitly stated that the goal is to make Avengers Secret Wars about, quote, new beginnings. And I really need to make this crystal clear, because it changes everything about how we view the next two Avengers films. Secret Wars is not simply leading up to a reboot. Secret Wars is the reboot itself. If we look deeply at comic book history, specifically Jonathan Hickman's masterful 2015 Secret Wars run, the whole concept revolves around the literal destruction of the multiverse. In the comics, Hickman destroyed everything. He created a patchwork battle world to eventually merge the Ultimate and Mainline universes into a single streamlined continuity. Unlike Endgame, which was this definitive closing of the book on the Infinity Saga, the cinematic Secret Wars is being engineered as that exact same launching pad from the comics. It's the Crucible, where the old, fragmented continuity is completely melted down to forge something entirely brand new. Let's actually walk through how this builds chronologically to execute that massive reset. Step 1. Doomsday acts as the ultimate showdown, where our legacy characters face off against Doctor Doom. Step 2. This catastrophic conflict essentially shatters the multiverse, completely allowing the writers to clear out all the old convoluted timelines that have been weighing the story down. Step 3. Brand new iterations arrive in Secret Wars. This is exactly where the soft reboot takes effect, and honestly, it is a completely vital move. By creating a unified timeline, the studio can bypass all those messy, drawn-out origin stories. We're already seeing the seeds of this right now with brand new characters being cast. We've got Sadie Sink stepping in as a completely fresh version of Jean Grey, and Mahershala Ali finally arriving physically on screen as Blade. Secret Wars is the perfect gateway to take these new faces and drop them seamlessly into an already established, highly functional universe. It's brilliant. But that brings up a rather dark and incredibly suspenseful question. Who actually survives the board clearing? Because if Secret Wars is bringing in new blood, well, Doomsday has to be the brutal mechanism that empties the seats. And I have to be completely honest with you here, the reality is looking incredibly grim for several of our most beloved legacy characters. The narrative necessity of sacrifice means that the Fox X-Men and certain veteran heroes are facing a permanent off-ramp. Think about the incredible 25-year cinematic legacy of the Fox universe. I mean, they essentially birthed the modern superhero boom way back in the year 2000. But their inclusion here isn't just for cheap nostalgia or shock value. Narratively speaking, you cannot logically introduce a brand new young Jean Grey in Secret Wars if you still have the old Fox universe Professor X and Cyclops running around from Doomsday. It's just too messy. Those older Fox iterations are almost certainly not making it out of Doomsday alive. They are there to pass the torch, serving as an emotional, heroic sacrifice that gives this new universe actual palpable stakes. Furthermore, I strongly believe that veteran cinematic mainstays like Paul Rudd's Ant-Man have a very, very high likelihood of perishing. Clearing the board of older heroes is practically the only narrative way to establish the true, world-ending threat level of Doctor Doom. Section 3. Undoing the mistakes. Okay, let's pivot to a much more optimistic tone, because this isn't just about losing characters we love. This massive soft reboot gives the cinematic universe a once-in-a-lifetime chance to literally hit the undo button on some of its most glaring recent missteps. And let me be absolutely passionate about this for a moment. The overarching story has suffered deeply from the massive void left by Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. Look, when you remove the two foundational pillars that held up your entire interconnected universe, the structure inherently sags. It just does. This soft reboot is the absolute perfect excuse to fix that lack of leadership. Imagine bringing back a prime Steve Rogers, a version who actually lived a full, rich life in the past with Peggy Carter. He now has this profound emotional maturity and wisdom. Pulling this seasoned Steve Rogers back into the fray and carrying him forward into the upcoming mutant saga completely repairs that broken foundation. A world dealing with the heavy socio-political complexities of the X-Men, but without the moral compass of Captain America, that just feels fundamentally wrong. We need him back. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. We absolutely have to acknowledge the massive elephant in the room here. What does this mean for Sam Wilson? Anthony Mackie has been passed the shield, he is our current Captain America, and he's openly talked about wanting a Captain America 5. So does bringing Chris Evans back permanently undermine Sam's entire cinematic journey? Absolutely not. In fact, the solution is incredibly exciting. Two Captain Americas sharing the screen. Let me break down why this works so beautifully. In the comic books, we have successfully had dual caps operating at the exact same time for years. A perfect example is the Commander Rogers era, where Steve Rogers operated as the top cop of the entire Marvel Universe, while Bucky, and later Sam, wielded the iconic shield. It's a highly celebrated concept. And furthermore, let's look at this from a pure Hollywood business perspective. Anthony Mackie is certainly not going to object to a massive cosmic-level team-up film. Pairing his Sam Wilson alongside Chris Evans' Steve Rogers guarantees an absolute monster at the box office. It elevates Sam to stand shoulder to shoulder with a living legend, rather than just forcing him to forever live in the shadow of trying to fill those massive shoes all alone. And let's look objectively at why a massive team-up is exactly what Sam Wilson needs right now. We need a cinematic spectacle far beyond what we got in Brave New World. Look, from a pure action standpoint, that film had incredible moments. I mean, the high-octane sequence where Sam is literally riding a missile through the sky, absolutely incredible. But we also have to honestly address the overarching writing and directing issues that plagued the pacing of that film. It felt disjointed in places. Putting Sam in a grand Secret Wars level team-up fundamentally changes his entire narrative framework. Pitting him against a cosmic, reality-warping threat like Doctor Doom, rather than grounded political adversaries, completely washes away those solo outing growing pains. It instantly elevates him to the status of a true, heavy-hitting Avenger.
Section 4. The Villain's Destiny.
Now, let's transition into the final, and perhaps most critical piece of this massive puzzle. We've talked extensively about the heroes, the sacrifices, and the mechanics of the reboot, but what does this entire architectural strategy mean for our primary antagonist? Will Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom just be a one-off threat? Let me tell you right now with absolute personal conviction, bringing back the very godfather of the cinematic universe, Robert Downey Jr., to play its greatest villain is a move that demands a decade-long payoff. Treating a character of Doctor Doom's incredible magnitude as just a temporary, quick cameo or a two-movie problem is a massive, unforgivable missed opportunity. Doom is not just a monster of the week. He's just not.
Great cinematic universes understand that villains need to build lasting legacies, not just burn and turn. Think about the most legendary, enduring antagonists in cinema history. Look at Darth Vader. Look at Emperor Palpatine. They weren't just defeated in one movie and forgotten, right? Their presence, their legacy, and their terrifying threat lingered over the entire galaxy for decades. The cinematic universe has a really bad habit of introducing incredible villains, having them pose a massive threat for 2 hours, and then killing them off. Doctor Doom deserves to be the Vader of this universe. If we look deep into the comic lore, Doom isn't just a guy who wants to destroy the world for the fun of it. He is the ruler of Latveria. He is a deeply complex, tragically flawed dictator who genuinely believes at his very core that the multiverse is only safe under his strict control. That immense psychological depth requires a long-term, underlying presence that stretches far, far beyond Doomsday and Secret Wars.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question. Will God Emperor Doom reshape the entire multiverse, hitting the ultimate reset button, only to vanish forever once the deed is done? Or will he, much like Steve Rogers, survive his own soft reboot? Will he linger in the shadows of the upcoming mutant saga, that highly anticipated era where the X-Men finally take center stage, as an ever-present, calculating God King pulling the strings from behind the curtain? As we look toward this massive cinematic reset, the true excitement isn't just about who we lose. It's about the enduring legends, both the heroes and the villains, that will deeply define the next decade of storytelling. Think about that as we wait for the dust to settle on Secret Wars.